Omega found a dying baby in the snow. The moment it touched her, the Alpha King's mark burned on her. The wind howled across the frozen forest, carrying snow like tiny shards of glass. Trees bent under the weight of ice, their branches creaking as though warning travelers to turn back. Alara pulled her cloak tighter around her shoulders, her breath forming clouds in the bitter air. She had wandered far from the village that day, searching for herbs to heal the sick, unaware that the forest held secrets older than any living being. The snow crunched beneath her boots, a sharp, lonely sound in the vast silence. Her heart pounded, partly from the cold, partly from unease. Something about this part of the forest felt different, darker, quieter, as if the trees themselves were holding their breath. Alara's sharp eyes scanned the landscape, and then she saw it, a tiny shape, half buried in snow, trembling as if it could vanish at any moment. She hurried closer and dropped to her knees. The snow melted on her hands as she pulled the child free, revealing a fragile, shivering baby wrapped in tattered cloth. Its tiny lips trembled, and its eyes, wide with fear, seemed almost too old for a newborn. The sight tore at Alara's heart. Without hesitation, she pressed the child against her chest, whispering soothing words. "You're safe now, I'll keep you warm," she murmured, brushing snow from its hair. As soon as the child's small hand brushed her skin, Alara felt a sudden, searing pain in her wrist. She cried out, clutching her arm. Flames of heat raced along her veins, and a glowing mark appeared on her skin, burning bright white against the cold blue of her cloak. It was intricate, like a symbol carved by magic itself, the mark of the Alpha King. Alara froze. She had heard stories of the Alpha King, a ruler feared across the kingdom for his power and his curse. His mark was said to bind fated mates, linking them to his life and his will. And now it had chosen her. The child stirred in her arms, its tiny hand pressing against the glowing mark, as though it had awakened something within both of them. Panic surged through Alara. She did not know whether to flee or stay, whether the mark meant she was cursed or chosen. One thing was certain, the forest was no longer safe for her. A sudden howl echoed through the trees, a deep, resonant sound that shook the snow from the branches. Alara's head snapped up. The forest seemed to hold its breath, the wind silencing itself as shadows shifted between the trees. She could feel eyes watching her, and her stomach clenched with fear. Without thinking, she wrapped the baby tighter in her cloak and ran. Her boots sank into the snow, her lungs burning with cold air. Behind her the howl came again, closer this time, followed by the sound of massive paws crushing snow. The Alpha King himself. Alara's mind raced. She had to hide, had to protect the child. She knew of the stories of people who had been taken by the Alpha King. They never returned the same. But something about the baby's tiny heartbeat, so fragile yet fierce, gave her courage. She pressed forward, deeper into the forest, hoping to find shelter in the hollowed roots of a fallen tree. Finally, she found a small hollow beneath an ancient oak, half covered by snow and ice. She crawled inside and placed the child on her lap, shivering. She pressed her hands together over the tiny body, willing warmth to flow through the thin fabric. The glowing mark on her wrist dimmed slightly, though the burn lingered like fire beneath the skin. Alara took a shaky breath. Who left you here?" she whispered, tears freezing on her cheeks. "And why?" Her voice faltered, knowing the answers would be dangerous. The forest was silent for a moment, except for the baby's soft cries. Then came the sound that froze her blood, the echo of footsteps on the snow, deliberate and slow. They were large, heavy, and moving closer, crushing branches and leaving deep prints in the snow. Alara pressed herself against the hollow's wall, covering the child with her cloak, trying to make herself invisible. Her mind raced. She did not know whether these were hunters or someone worse. Her hands trembled, but she forced herself to stay still, listening to the crunch of snow growing nearer. Then came the voice, deep, commanding, impossible to ignore. "Show yourself." Alara's heart jumped. The voice carried both authority and danger. Every instinct screamed at her to run, but there was nowhere to run. She hugged the child to her chest, shaking, and spoke, her voice small but firm. I won't let you take him." The forest seemed to grow colder, darker. The voice came again, closer. "The mark burns on you, Omega, the bond has begun." Ilara's stomach dropped. How could he know? She had never spoken a word about the mark. And yet in that moment she understood something terrifying. This Alpha King, the ruler of the frost-bound citadel, could sense her, the child, and the connection that now linked them. The shadows shifted, forming the shape of a massive wolf with golden eyes that glimmered even in the snow. Its fur was silver-white, blending with the storm, and its presence radiated power that made Ilara's knees weak. The Alpha King had arrived, not in human form, but as the wolf of legend that could crush the kingdom with its strength alone. The baby stirred, reaching out its tiny hand toward the creature. In that instant, Ilara felt a strange pull, as though the bond between her, the child, and the wolf was more than fate. Her fear battled with something else, a strange, inexplicable feeling that made her chest tighten. You are real," she whispered. The wolf tilted its head, golden eyes fixed on the mark that still burned on her wrist. A voice, deep and resonant, spoke in the wind, though the lips of the wolf did not move. "The bond has begun. You cannot hide, Omega." Ilara shook her head, clutching the child tighter. "I am not yours," she cried, her voice trembling. "I don't know what this means, but I won't let anyone hurt him." The Alpha King's wolf form circled her, slow, deliberate, powerful. Snow swirled around them in a blinding storm, yet she could feel the heat of his presence despite the cold. "You cannot protect him alone," the voice said softly, almost regretfully. "The child is the key, and you are bound to him and to me." Ilara's heart raced. The mark on her wrist flared brighter again, searing into her skin. It was painful, overwhelming, but it also carried a strange warmth that settled into her chest, into her mind. She did not understand it, but she could not deny the pull she felt toward the Alpha King, toward the power that surrounded him. The wind roared and the wolf stepped closer, massive paws crunching the ice, eyes locked on hers. The storm seemed to pause around them, as though the forest itself waited for her next move. Ilara's thoughts spun. She had never wanted adventure. She had never wanted danger. But now, with a baby in her arms, a mark burning on her wrist, and the Alpha King watching her like a predator and protector in the same breath, her life had changed forever. "Leave me," she whispered, voice trembling. "Leave us and go back to your throne." The wolf's golden eyes softened slightly, though its stance remained firm, unyielding. The voice spoke again, low and intimate, carrying an echo of loneliness beneath its authority. "The bond is not your choice, Omega. The child's life, your fate, and mine are entwined. Run and the snow will hide you for a time, but it cannot hide you from destiny." Ilara looked down at the baby, small, fragile, yet holding a strength she could feel deep in her bones. The child's tiny fingers reached toward her glowing mark, and in that instant the bond pulsed stronger, almost pulling her to her knees. The pain of the mark flared, burning bright, and then slowly dimmed to a steady glow, as if signaling the beginning of a new chapter. She took a deep, shivering breath. "I will protect him," she whispered, her voice gaining courage. "No matter what, even if it means facing the Alpha King himself." The wolf tilted its head, golden eyes reflecting the pale light of the storm. Then, as silently as it had appeared, it melted back into the snowstorm, disappearing into the blizzard, leaving Ilara alone with the child. But the words lingered in her mind, echoing through the forest. "The bond has begun. You cannot hide, Omega." Ilara hugged the child close, shivering against the cold, yet a new determination burned inside her. She did not know what this bond meant, nor the danger it would bring. But one thing was certain. Her life had been irrevocably changed the moment the baby's hand touched hers, and the Alpha King's mark burned upon her wrist. She wrapped the child in her cloak, pressing forward through the snowstorm, her eyes fixed on the faint glow of a distant light. Somewhere ahead, shelter awaited, but so did destiny, danger, and the Alpha King. And she knew, deep in her heart, that there was no turning back. The forest seemed endless, the snow deep, and yet Alara's steps were sure. She would survive, she would protect the child, and she would face whatever fate the Alpha King had marked upon her. But as the wind whispered through the frozen trees, a single thought echoed through the icy air. The Alpha King was coming, and he would not wait. The storm had passed, but the forest was still a frozen maze of white. Alara trudged through snow up to her knees, the baby wrapped tightly in her cloak. Each step felt heavier than the last. Her hands were numb, her lips cracked, yet she refused to slow down. Somewhere ahead there had to be shelter, warmth, and safety. But she knew, deep down, that safety was only an illusion. The Alpha King had not left her alone, not truly. Even as she fled, she could feel his presence lingering, like a shadow pressing against her back. The mark on her wrist burned occasionally, a steady pulse reminding her of the bond she could not escape. It was more than a mark. It was a connection, a warning, a destiny. After hours of walking, she finally stumbled upon a cave hidden behind a wall of frost-covered rocks. It was small but deep, offering some protection from the wind. She lowered herself to the ground, laying the baby on her lap. Its tiny face was pale and its lips trembled. Alara's heart clenched. "You'll be safe here, at least for a little while," she whispered, brushing snow from the child's hair. She shivered violently, but not from the cold. The fear of the Alpha King's return gnawed at her. Then from deep inside the cave came a sound that made her blood freeze, the low, deliberate growl of a wolf. Alara's head snapped up. "No, no, please, don't." Before she could finish, the massive wolf with golden eyes stepped into the cave. The Alpha King. Not in human form, but as the great silver-white wolf she had seen in the forest. Its fur glimmered under the pale light that filtered through the cave's opening, and its presence radiated power and authority. The baby stirred, its tiny hand reaching toward the creature. The Alpha King's eyes softened for the briefest moment before hardening again. "You cannot hide from me, Omega," the voice echoed inside her mind, deep and commanding, yet not unkind. "The bond has begun and it will not be undone." Alara hugged the child closer. "I will protect him. I don't know what this bond means, but I will not let you take him." The wolf circled her slowly, each step measured and deliberate, crunching ice beneath its paws. "I do not wish to harm him," the voice said, "but the child is not just any child. He carries a power that could change the kingdom. And you, Omega, you are tied to him whether you will or not." Alara's mind raced. A power, the baby. She had noticed strange things. How the child's tiny fingers would glow faintly in the dark, how it reacted to danger. But she had no understanding of what it meant. The Alpha King stepped closer, so close that she could feel the heat radiating from his body despite his wolf form. "The mark on your wrist is my bond," he continued. "It is not only a symbol of fate, it is a seal, linking your life to the child S. If he survives, so will you. If he falls, the bond will consume you both." Alara's stomach twisted. She had been running blindly, thinking only of escape and survival, but now she understood that she was at the center of something far greater than herself. And yet, fear would not allow her to yield. "I don't care about fate," she said, her voice trembling but firm. "I care about him. The baby is all that matters. If you want him, you'll have to go through me." The Alpha King's golden eyes studied her, and for the first time a flicker of something else crossed his face, curiosity, perhaps even admiration. "You are brave," he said, his voice echoing in her mind. "And stubborn. The prophecy spoke of an Omega who would challenge the ice-bound heart of the king. Perhaps it was you." Alara's heart skipped. Prophecy. The words were heavy, dangerous. "Prophecy or not, I will protect him," she whispered. The wolf shifted, pacing the cave in silence for a moment. Then slowly it began to change. Limbs shortened, fur receding, and before Alara could react, the Alpha King stood before her as a tall, imposing man. His hair was white as snow, eyes golden and piercing, yet his expression softened as he looked at the baby in her arms. "You are not as fragile as you appear," he said, voice lower, almost gentle. "And the child, he is stronger than I imagined." Alara held the baby closer, instinctively shielding him. "Why? Why is he important?" Kaelin, the Alpha King, sighed. "He is heir to more than a throne. The kingdom itself, the magic that sustains it, flows through him. And now, because of you, Omega, that power is tied to you as well." Her mind reeled. "Tied to me?" she echoed. "I don't understand. I'm just a healer. I'm nothing." "You are far more than nothing," Kaelin said, his voice softening yet still commanding. "The mark on your wrist binds you to him and to me. You have the power to protect him in ways I cannot. That is why you were chosen. That is why the bond exists." Alara's hands shook. She had never imagined that her simple life, filled with herbs and healing, would bring her to the center of prophecy, danger, and power. And yet, holding the baby, feeling the warmth of his life against hers, she understood that she could not turn back. The Alpha King knelt slightly, his golden eyes never leaving her face. "I do not wish to claim you, Omega, but you will need my protection. There are enemies, those who would see the child destroyed, who would see the kingdom fall. You cannot face them alone." Alara shook her head. "I don't need protection, I can do this." Kaelin's expression hardened, but not with anger. "You cannot. The child's enemies are powerful, they are patient. They wait for the weak, and you, though strong in spirit, are alone." She bit her lip, torn between defiance and fear. "Then what do you want from me?" "I want to ensure the child lives," Kaelin said simply. "And I want you to survive, Omega. That is all. Everything else will come with time." For a long moment, silence hung between them, broken only by the baby's soft cries. Alara studied Kaelin, trying to discern his intentions. Was he friend or foe, protector or captor? His presence was overwhelming, his power undeniable, yet there was something in his gaze, something human, hidden beneath the legend of the Alpha King. Finally, she spoke. "If you truly wish to protect him, then help me. Don't take him from me. Don't make him a pawn." Kaelin's eyes softened again. "I would not. Not unless fate itself demanded it. But know this, Omega. Once the bond begins, it cannot be undone. The child, you and I, we are linked forever. And that link will bring both danger and strength." Alara swallowed hard. "Then we fight together," she said, her voice firmer now. "Whatever comes, we face it together." Kaelin studied her for a long moment, then nodded. "Together." The storm outside had quieted, but the forest was still treacherous. Kaelin extended his hand. "Come. The night is long and dangers do not rest. I will guide you to shelter, and then we must plan. The child's enemies will not wait, and neither can we." Alara hesitated, then placed the baby gently against her chest and took his hand. His warmth was a grounding force against the fear and uncertainty. She stepped toward him, trusting the strange, powerful man before her. As they moved through the snow, Kaelin's presence was both intimidating and reassuring. Every step was measured, silent, like the forest itself obeyed him. But Alara could feel the pull of the bond between them, an unspoken connection that warmed her even in the bitter cold. Hours passed as they journeyed through the frozen forest, finally reaching a small, abandoned lodge hidden among snow-covered pines. It was far from perfect, but it offered shelter from the storm and from prying eyes. Kaelin helped Alara settle the baby, wrapping him in layers of warm cloth. "You rest," he said. "The night is dangerous and the enemies, they will come." Alara shook her head. "I cannot rest while he sleeps. I must watch over him." "You are tied to him, Omega," Kaelin said, his voice almost a whisper. "You and he share a bond that cannot be broken, but even the strongest cannot endure alone. Trust me. For tonight, let me guard both of you." Her heart raced. Trust. It was a word she had not allowed herself to think, let alone act upon. Yet something about the way he looked at the child, protective, patient, aware, made her hesitate. Outside, the wind howled again, as if warning them that the night was far from over. Alara hugged the baby, the faint glow of her mark casting light across the wooden walls. She understood, deep in her soul, that this was only the beginning. The Alpha King was near. The child's destiny was fragile, and the bond that had begun in the snow would lead them all into danger, challenge, and perhaps something far greater. And in the darkness, Kalen watched over them both, the golden fire in his eyes a silent promise. The child would survive, and the Omega who had found him would never face fate alone. The morning sun barely pierced the thick layer of frost clinging to the trees. Inside the abandoned lodge, Alara carefully tended to the baby, whose soft breathing filled the quiet room. Every time she looked at him, her heart tightened. He was so small, yet something inside her whispered that he carried strength beyond his fragile frame. Kalen stood by the window, his golden eyes scanning the snow-covered forest. Even in the warmth of the lodge, he radiated an aura of power, of something ancient and unyielding. Alara could feel the pull of the bond between them, the invisible thread linking her to him and to the child. It was not simply magic or fate. It was something she could feel in her bones, in the quiet moments when the storm outside silenced everything else. "You should rest," Kalen said, turning toward her. His voice was low, steady, yet carried weight. "The bond you share with him, it drains you more than you know." "I cannot rest while he sleeps," Alara replied, her hands busy smoothing the baby's blanket. "If anything happens, I need to be ready." Kalen's gaze softened slightly. "I understand," he said, "but strength alone will not protect him. You must trust me as well." Alara met his eyes, feeling a flicker of uncertainty. Trust was not something she gave lightly. And yet, she had seen his power, his ability to protect, and she had felt his presence in the forest, even when he was not there in form. Something told her that he would not allow harm to come to the child, not willingly at least. Hours passed in tense quiet. Outside, the forest whispered with the remnants of the storm, shadows shifting in the snow. Then, without warning, the wind shifted violently, carrying a chilling howl that echoed through the trees. Alara stiffened. "They're here," Kalen said, his eyes narrowing. "The ones who seek the child. They are patient, but they never stop hunting." Alara's heart pounded. "How do we stop them?" Kalen stepped closer, placing a hand lightly on her shoulder. "We do not fight them alone," he said. "We must use the bond. You, the child, and I, we are stronger together than they can imagine." Alara shook her head. "I don't understand. How can a baby, a tiny baby, have power strong enough to matter to kings and armies?" Kalen knelt beside her, his golden eyes locking with hers. "He carries the magic of this kingdom itself. Old magic, stronger than any sword or army. And you are the key to that magic. The bond between you fuels it. That is why the mark burned on your wrist when he touched you. You are not merely his protector. You are part of his strength, his life." Alara's hands trembled. She had always considered herself small, powerless, unimportant. But the weight of destiny had fallen onto her shoulders in an instant. And now, holding the baby, she understood that the stories of power and magic were not tales. They were real, and she was part of them. Kalen's hand lingered on her shoulder, a gentle reassurance against the storm of fear inside her. "You will not face this alone," he said. "I will guide you, I will protect you, and together we will ensure the child survives." Before she could respond, a sharp noise from outside shattered the moment, a snapping branch, the crunch of snow under deliberate footsteps. Alara's heart leapt. Kalen rose instantly, moving to the doorway. "They've found us," he said. His voice was calm but fierce, like ice that could cut through steel. "We have little time." Alara held the baby close. "What do we do?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Kalen's gaze swept over the room, calculating, precise. "We leave now. The child cannot be captured, and hiding will no longer protect him. You will come with me, and together we will reach the ancient caverns beneath the mountain. There the old magic sleeps. There he will be safe. Alara's stomach clenched. The caverns were a place of legend said to be filled with ancient power and danger. I can't do it alone, she admitted, her voice trembling. I need you to guide me. Kalen's eyes softened. You will not be alone, he said. The bond ties us. We move as one. Together they moved quickly through the snow, Kalen leading, Alara following, the baby cradled in her arms. The forest was alive with hidden threats, shadows that seemed to move with intent, whispers in the wind that spoke of danger. Every step was careful, every breath measured. Yet even in fear, Alara felt something strange, a warmth, a growing trust, and a connection to Kalen she could not explain. Hours passed as the landscape shifted from forest to frozen cliffs. Finally, they reached the mouth of the ancient caverns, dark and foreboding, yet somehow protective. Kalen paused, placing a hand on the stone wall. Here, he said, the old magic lies within. You and the child will be safe here for now. But do not be fooled, danger follows, even to sacred places. Alara entered the cavern, marveling at the icy walls that shimmered like crystal. The air hummed with power, and she could feel the bond with the child grow stronger. The mark on her wrist pulsed, warm and bright, responding to the energy around them. As she settled the baby into a small alcove, Kalen knelt beside her. He is reacting to the magic, he said. That is why they fear him. That is why the bond chose you. The child is not merely an heir. He is a force that will change this kingdom. Alara looked at him, fear and awe mingling in her chest. And we are part of it, Kalen nodded. The three of us are bound by fate. Together, we are stronger than they imagine. But you must learn to trust not only me but the bond itself. It will guide you, protect you, and test you. Alara's hands tightened around the baby. I don't know if I can. You can, Kalen said softly. You already have. That is why you survived the forest, why you found the child, why the mark burned. The bond chose you because you are strong enough to carry it. For a long moment, silence fell, filled only by the hum of magic and the baby's gentle breathing. Then Kalen's eyes softened further, a flicker of something human beneath the legend of the Alpha King. Alara, he said, his voice low, I know this is overwhelming. I know you fear what is to come. But know this, you are not alone. The child's strength is your strength. The bond is not a curse. It is a gift if you allow it to guide you. Alara felt tears prick her eyes. She had spent her life believing she was small, powerless, invisible. But now, holding the child, feeling the connection to Kalen, she understood that she mattered. That she could shape destiny, that she could protect what was most precious. Kalen reached out, brushing a stray lock of hair from her face. His touch was light, careful, yet full of authority. We must rest, Omega. The journey is far from over and the enemies do not pause. Tomorrow we will begin training, learning to harness the bond, to awaken the child's magic, and to protect him against those who seek to harm him. Alara nodded, exhausted, yet a strange determination filled her. I will do whatever it takes, she whispered. Kalen's golden eyes held hers, warm and steady. And I will do the same, he said. Together we will face whatever comes. That night, as Alara watched the baby sleep, she felt the bond pulse through her wrist, steady and strong. For the first time, she did not feel fear. She felt purpose. And even though danger loomed outside the cavern, even though enemies watched and waited, she knew that she had found allies in the unlikeliest of places. A child who held the kingdom's magic, and an Alpha King whose icebound heart was slowly learning the warmth of trust. Outside, the wind howled through the mountains, carrying whispers of shadowed threats and unseen watchers. But inside the cavern, a small light glowed, the warmth of a bond that could not be broken, the beginning of a journey that would test courage, loyalty, and love. And in the quiet, Kalen's voice spoke softly to her mind once more. The path ahead is dangerous, Omega, but together we will overcome. The bond cannot be undone, and neither can the strength it brings. Alara pressed the baby closer, feeling the glow of the mark on her wrist. She understood now. Whatever came next, she would face it, not alone, but with the Alpha King by her side and the child in her arms. But as she drifted into a restless sleep, the distant howl of enemies reminded her that the journey was only beginning. Shadows still lurked, and the flames beneath the ice of destiny had begun to stir. The caverns were alive with ancient magic. Crystals embedded in the walls glimmered faintly, casting fractured light across the icy floors. The air hummed with energy, vibrating softly against Alara's skin. She crouched near the baby, his tiny hands brushing against the blanket as though sensing the magic surrounding them. The mark on her wrist glowed faintly, steady now, a pulse in rhythm with the child's heartbeat. Kalen stood near the cavern's entrance, his golden eyes scanning the shadows beyond. He was still in his human form, tall and imposing, yet there was a softness in his gaze reserved only for the child and for her. His presence was both a comfort and a warning, a reminder of the bond that tied them all together. "Ilara," he said, his voice calm but firm, "the enemies have discovered our location. They will strike soon. We must prepare." She nodded, gripping the baby close. "I understand." "But what if I'm not strong enough?" Kalen's expression softened. "You are stronger than you realize. The bond chose you for a reason. Together we can face anything. But you must trust not only me, but the power that lives in him and in you." Alara's fingers traced the glowing mark on her wrist. The warmth pulsed through her, filling her with courage. She had faced fear before, but this was different. The child's life, the kingdom's fate, and even Kalen's heart were entwined with hers. She could not falter. The first signs of movement came as shadows at the cavern entrance. Figures cloaked in darkness, moving with precision, wielding weapons and whispers of magic. Alara's breath caught, but Kalen was already in motion. "Stay close to the child," he commanded. "Do not separate." "He is the key." Alara nodded, tightening her hold. She felt the bond pulse again, stronger now, almost urging her to focus, to protect, to act. She did not understand all of it, but instinct guided her. The intruders stepped into the cavern, unaware of the traps Kalen had set. Hidden by centuries-old magic, the paths seemed to shift, confusing those who dared enter. Crystals glowed brighter as Kalen raised his hands, channeling energy into the cavern itself. Snow and ice swirled around the intruders, slowing their advance, disorienting them. Alara watched in awe. The bond between her, Kalen, and the child seemed to react. She could feel power rising within her, subtle at first, then stronger, an instinct to protect, to shield, to fight. She held the baby closer, and the tiny hands pressed against her chest as if sensing her rising courage. "Focus on the bond," Kalen shouted over the roar of magic. "Do not let fear take hold." Alara closed her eyes, letting the energy flow through her. It was unlike anything she had ever felt, warm, fierce, and protective. She could see flashes of the child's power, small but brilliant sparks of light, reacting to her own determination. Together, they created a shield that shimmered around them, blocking the intruders' attacks. The battle was fierce but brief. The intruders had not anticipated the combined strength of the Alpha King, the Omega, and the child. Magic surged, illuminating the cavern in white and gold light, and one by one the enemies fell back, retreating into the darkness from which they came. When the cavern fell silent again, Alara sank to her knees, exhausted. The baby rested peacefully in her arms as if nothing had happened. Kalen knelt beside her, his golden eyes softening as he reached out, brushing a lock of hair from her face. "You did well," he said quietly. "The bond, it is stronger than I imagined. And you stronger than I believed." Alara's voice was barely a whisper. "I only protected him. That's all I know how to do." Kalen smiled faintly, a rare warmth crossing his features. "Then you are exactly what fate needed." For a long moment they sat in silence, the echoes of the battle fading into the hum of the cavern's magic. Alara felt the bond steady now, glowing softly against her wrist, and for the first time she allowed herself to breathe. She had survived the storm, the forest, and the enemies. She had protected the child, and she was learning to trust, not just in Kaelin, but in herself. "Kaelin," she whispered, looking up at him, I don't understand everything. The bond, the prophecy, the magic. But I know one thing. I will not let him let us fail." Kaelin reached out, taking her hand in his. The warmth from the mark flowed between them, a connection that neither could ignore. "You will not fail," he said, "and neither will I. We will face whatever comes together." Time passed, and the quiet of the cavern became a sanctuary. Kaelin taught her how to feel the bond, how to sense the child's power, and how to channel it into protection. Slowly, she learned to anticipate danger, to sense magic, and even to draw on the strength within herself that she had never known existed. The child, small and fragile as he appeared, was growing stronger too. His tiny fingers would glow faintly when danger approached, and sometimes small sparks of light would dance around him when he slept. Alara marveled at it, realizing that the prophecy was not merely about survival. It was about awakening something ancient, something powerful, and something that could change the kingdom. One evening, as the light of the setting sun glimmered on the icy walls, Kaelin spoke softly. "Alara, I have lived a long time bound by duty, power, and fear. I thought I understood strength, but I was wrong. True strength comes from trust, from love, and from protecting what matters most. You have shown me that." Alara looked up, startled. "Me? I am just an Omega. I've made mistakes, I've been scared, but You have changed me," Kaelin interrupted gently. "And in protecting him, you have awakened something in me I thought was lost. The ice in my heart, it has begun to thaw." Alara's cheeks flushed. She did not know how to respond. She had seen the warmth in his eyes, the rare softness in his voice, and the care with which he watched her and the child. Yet he was still Kaelin, the Alpha King, powerful, unyielding, and bound by destiny. The gap between them felt enormous, yet undeniable. Suddenly a tremor ran through the cavern. The walls shivered and ice cracked beneath their feet. Alara clutched the child, heart racing. Kaelin's eyes narrowed. "They've returned. The enemies stronger, more determined. They will not stop until the child is theirs." Alara stood, resolve hardening inside her. "Then we fight together. Bonded or not, I will not let them take him." Kaelin stepped beside her, golden eyes blazing. "We will fight, yes, but this time the child will not be merely protected. He will awaken, and his power will show them what it means to underestimate destiny." The enemies surged into the cavern, shadows twisting with magic and malice. But this time, Alara did not cower. She felt the bond thrumming between her, the child, and Kaelin, a perfect harmony of protection, trust, and growing strength. Together they were unstoppable. The child's tiny hands glowed with bright light, pure and fierce, pushing back the attackers. Alara focused on the mark, on the bond, and on the unyielding determination to protect life above all else. Kaelin moved with lethal precision, combining his power with the magic flowing from the bond. The intruders fell one by one, overwhelmed by a force they could not comprehend. When the battle finally ended, the cavern fell silent once more. Crystals shimmered faintly, reflecting the light of the child's small aura. Alara sank to her knees, breathing hard but triumphant. The child rested peacefully, his tiny chest rising and falling, and Kaelin knelt beside her, golden eyes filled with pride and something softer, almost human. "You did it," Kaelin said quietly. "We did it." Alara looked at him, unsure how to respond. She had survived fear, danger, and doubt, and now she realized something important. She was not powerless. She was part of something greater, something that could shape destiny. Kaelin reached out, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "The bond is strong, Omega. It will not end here, and neither will the protection, the strength, or the feelings it brings." Alara's heart tightened. She had grown to trust him, to rely on him, to care for him. Yet the bond was more than trust. It was a connection deeper than she had imagined, one that tied them to life, destiny, and each other. She whispered, I trust you, and I will follow this bond wherever it leads. Kalen smiled faintly, a warmth that seemed to melt the ice around them. Then we are ready for whatever comes next, together. The sun rose over the frozen mountains, casting golden light into the cavern. Outside, the snow glimmered like diamonds. The storm had passed, the enemies had been defeated, and the bond between Omega, Alpha, and Child had strengthened. Alara held the baby close, feeling the warmth of the mark and the bond. Kalen stood beside her, his hand resting lightly on hers, a silent promise of protection, trust, and something deeper, something neither of them could yet name. The kingdom outside was still dangerous, filled with enemies and shadows. But within the cavern there was light, there was warmth, and there was hope. The prophecy had begun, the bond was unbroken, and together they would face whatever the future held. And in that moment, Alara understood the truth of the Alpha King's words. Strength came not from power alone, but from trust, courage, and love. The ice in Kalen's heart had begun to melt. And for the first time, all three of them, Omega, Alpha, and Child, were free to embrace the destiny that awaited them.